So what if I told you that you could have an exposure that highly increases your chance of chronic health conditions? What if I told you that many doctors, nurses, healthcare providers in general do not realize it? That this experience is so different for each individual, and that in high doses you could have such a high risk of mental illness, heart disease, even cancers. These are known as adverse childhood effects. Though some of us have grown up in really good lives and never really experienced any trauma, some of us haven't. When I say trauma, I mean it in a very negative way. I do not mean it in a way that you learn from it and become better from it. I mean that it's stuck with you and it's something that should not have happened. Not making the cheerleading team or the basketball team or making a bad grade. I mean it in the way that you were abused or neglected or something, your parents were divorced. There are so many very traumatic things that stick with a child. And though we remember small traumas, they don't really have an increased impact on our health. The CDC did this huge study in 1995 to about 1997. They sent out a survey to over 17,000 participants. It was the largest study ever done on childhood trauma and neglect, and it was really the first one that ever had anything to do with linking it to health conditions. They asked all these participants about their current health status and their childhood. So at the end of this, they realized there was a major link. So what could we do to help it, or what is it? Why is this happening? What's going on? So really it came back to the link in coping skills. That's what it all boils down to, is that do our patients have the right coping skills or the right resources to cope well? Do they have anybody that's there for them that can help them or be there for them to make sure that they're on the right path and they're not failing, they're coping positively, not negatively? So we as practitioners use it. Everybody can use it. You can do it on yourself to find out what's going on. And then also, how do we assess it? How do we as nurses or doctors, how do we get to the bottom of what's going on? Well, after that study that the CDC did, there was a tool that was made, and it's got about 10 questions, and it's really focusing on the first 18 years of your life. So it gets pretty specific in the questions. It's kind of broad, but it's kind of right in the middle. It'll ask you about mental, physical, and sexual abuse, but it will say things like swear at you, did somebody insult you, humiliate you, were your parents ever divorced, did you have a member in the family that went to prison? So for every question that you answer yes to, you get a point. You get 1 point here, here, and here, and we can kind of look at the survey and say, okay, well, this person was never physically abused, but they never felt loved. Why didn't they feel loved? What was going on, and how did they cope with that? And so statistics just start to come together. And at the end, there's no specific thing that says somebody that's smoking is going to get cancer or COPD or heart disease. It could be a mixture of the three. There's so many different things that go on. So the higher the score, the more at risk, obviously, for very many different things. And I'm not saying that everybody that has had childhood trauma it's going to get a health condition, because you may not, but it's just that your chances are increased. So what can we do as practitioners to stop that? How, why? And so this is where we come in, and we provide resources for healthy coping, and we can go and say, okay, well, let's just go talk to somebody. Let's go talk to a counselor. Let's see what's going on. Or let's try to stop smoking. You want me to help you stop smoking? There's just so many different things that we can do as practitioners. And that's the good news about it, is because it is preventable. If a healthcare provider notices this early on in an individual's childhood, then we can encourage that patient to seek help, or to give them more positive ways to cope. And so that's what us as healthcare providers are doing. However, it is becoming something that providers are saying, well, I don't know, this is more of an issue for mental health and social services. So that's kind of where we're at today with it. We're trying to figure out how, as general practitioners, you can implement that into your practice. And so it's just standing, and it's just going to continue to be studied more and more throughout the medical field. And I think that it's great, but it may just always be the underlying cause for patients who have developed major diseases.